There was a family, a number of married kids who didn't have a lot of money and they needed money, all these kids. And the grandfather, the father of the parents, this grandfather was nifter and had left a menorah. And the menorah they knew was a valuable menorah. It's not an old menorah. So they decided what they're going to do is they should sell the menorah and they should divide it between all the different families. So they took the menorah to Sotheby's in Manhattan and they brought it to the Judaica department and they brought it to a man by the name of Mr. Kearney. And he was the head of the Judaica department in Sotheby's. And they said, we have something to show you. And apparently a lot of people bring him a lot of junk and he's not that excited. So when they said, we have a menorah, okay, let's see the menorah, let's see it ready. They open up the box and Mr. Kearney sees it and he's visibly shaken up. He says, oh, 1 second. I'll come back in a moment. I have to show this menorah to somebody. And he comes back and he says, you have something very special here. Do you know where this is from? They said, we're not sure. Maybe Germany, maybe Italy, we're not sure. He said, this menorah has got to be 250, 300 years old. And the work in the menorah, the handiwork, the filigree, it's so beautiful, you can get a lot of money. I think you can get maybe about $190,000 for this menorah. A riesiga amount of money, $190,000. I recommend, we'd be honored to have it. We're so excited about this. We would even put it on the cover of the catalog, which is very chashuv. And we think you could do it. And maybe you should make the minimum reserve at $150,000. Now, a reserve in an auction, for those of you that have never been to an auction, means that it has to get at least that amount. Otherwise, the mishpacha is not masking to sell it. So 150 is the minimum, and I think it could go up to 190. So the family discussed it among themselves. Lamais was the Yerusha all the way down. But sometimes, to support Kindlach learning koil, Yerushas are nice, but Kindlach and koil are even nicer. So the family decided they're going to sell it. And the auction was in a few months from then. It went on the cover of the catalog, and this took place around the year, in English, 2006, 2007, when the economy collapsed. And the day before the auction, Mr. Kearney calls up the family and says, look, we think we made a mistake. Because the economy collapsed so quickly, you're not going to get 190. You may get 150, and we think you should lower the reserve to 90,000. Still a lot of money for a menorah. But if you want to take back the item, we don't have to sell it in auction, because we did tell you 150. If you're not masking for a reserve of 90, we can either let you take it back or you could leave it, whatever you want. And the family discussed it among themselves, and they decided the mishpacha needs the money. They're going to keep it in the auction, and they're going to lower the reserve to $90,000. The day of the auction came, and the daughter of this person, this grandfather owned the auction, and her child, they came, two people, the mother and the son. They're waiting in the back of the auction, and there's all these museums and all these gevirim, and the auction began. And one item after the next did not sell. The economy, if you remember from 10 years ago, it was tiefendreher. It was very, very, very bad. And no one had extra money to spend on menorahs. And the menorahs that were selling for 10,000, 15,000, 90,000. They thought to themselves, Mr. Kearney made a terrible mistake. There's no way it's going to go for that much money. Finally, it was time for their menorah. It was up for bid. Mr. Kearney is standing there. He's got the gavel, the little hammer, and he bangs on. Okay, we have a menorah. This is Hanukkah, they call it. All the way back, it's almost 300 years old. We're going to start the bidding at $50,000. Do we have anyone 50? Anyone 50? Anyone? Let's have one bid 50. Finally, one person raises their paddle with the number on it. Okay, 50,000. Do we have 60? 60,000. 70. We got 70. 80. We got 80. And then it stalls. 80,000. Right below the low reserve. And they're waiting. Going once, 80. Going twice, 80. Do we have anyone else? 80 going once, 80 going twice. And he's about to say passed, which means it didn't sell. Someone raised their paddle. 90,000. So now the family knows the menorah is history. It's gone. Now they can only daven. This is the minimum. And they're waiting. 90,000 going once. 100,000. 110,000. 120. 130. 140. And now the family's giddy because this is real money and it could be split among the family and the excitement is building. They're almost going to reach the low reserve before the economy collapsed. It stalls. Going once, 140. Going twice, 150, 170, 180, 190. And now the family is giddy. It now reached the amount that was supposed to go before the economy collapsed. And they're dancing in their seat in the back. Over there, all the kivurim are in the front. 190. And they're going once, going twice, 200, 220, 230, 250, 270, 300, 310, 3... And the family, what's going on? 380, 390, 410, 420, 440, 460. And the whole place is in shock. The bidding is going higher and higher and higher and higher. The bidding finally stopped, including the reserve at $550,000, $500,000 for this menorah. And this family in the back, they didn't know what to do with themselves. And everyone, all the museum, everyone around saw something historic was happening. They had never seen such a thing. And finally, Mr. Kearney's standing in there and he's like a very proper Englishman. And even him, he broke down. He's laughing. Nobody expected it. So the family comes running over to Mr. Kearney and says, who bought it? 500. Who bought it? He says, we'll know in 10 minutes. You hope it's a good person. You hope it's somebody who could pay that much money. 10 minutes later, the family goes to Mr. Kearney's office. Mr. Kearney said it was bought by a museum. And the museum was a museum in Chicago. And this museum was looking for something in particular. They decided that they needed one piece of Judaica. One Jewish piece. They had other Jewish pieces, but they wanted a Jewish piece that was owned by somebody who lived and breathed and represented Judaism and Hashem to the world. They understood this Chicago museum, that a Rav is not just a Rav by name, but the Rav has to be somebody who lives and breathes it. And they did research, and they found out that the owner, this grandfather, was a person who anyone who reached out to him, he was able to attribute helping them to Hashem, Yid and Goy alike. Whatever was needed, he represented. And they said, if there's somebody that we're going to buy their piece of Judaic of our museum, it's this person. And I know this story because that person's my grandfather. And I was there in Sotheby's during the bidding. When you see a person who lives and breathes Tefillah to Hashem, they breathe it. Their actions, the whole world recognizes it. And that's why we say the words, Ashira LaHashem b'chayoi, Azamra leLokai be'oidi. Everything about me is a tefillah. Everything about my actions is a bakasha. I don't have to prove it. You see it. The way I drive is a Kiddush Hashem. The way I act in business is a tefillah. The way I act to the world is a bakasha. And the way I treat my wife, and the way I treat my husband, and the way I bring up my kindlach is a tefillah to Hashem. if there's one thing that Kiruv Tani can put inside of us, put in our beiner, just make us feel, is that we live a life of tefillah and shira and zemer to Hashem. So I give you each a bracha at the very end of this ne'ilah, the bracha of a shira l'Hashem b'chayoi. Let us leave here feeling inspired to live lives that every one of our actions emanates tefillah and shvach micha moicha ba'elim Hashem.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.